All right, welcome everyone. It is what time is it here? And for some reason, I triggered another phone. I don't know how in the world that happened, but nonetheless, it is what is it, about 6:08 here on the East Coast, 3:08 on the left coast. And again, we hope that everyone out there in California is being very, very cautious as we hear it's kind of tearing through. Almost through Englewood, it's out there by West Hollywood. So hopefully, they'll with the fires somehow or another will be controlled. So again, if you guys are in harm's way, do yourselves a favor. Just grab whatever you can and head on out the door and just get out of harm's way because there was a lot of cars that were being bulldozed out of the way in order for the fire department to arrive. But it is nonetheless Beav's World here on the Coastal Sports Network and Sports Radio 102.9 The Game. You guys can always visit sr1029thegame.com for all the latest content and also for the replays of the show. So when the shows are done, I try to get everything uploaded real quick so you guys can kind of keep up with everything that's going on. And speaking about things that are going on, there's Mickey. Mickey went from Rich's show over to our show. He says, now we have a real show. Hey, Mickey.
Be nice.
Yeah. But so we see some more hirings, some more firings, and I use hiring facetiously because no one's gotten hired yet. But what we had a defensive coordinator from San Fran being let go. San Fran, I think, is going to be just a hot mess, and they're going to try to figure out what went wrong because it seems like nothing's gone right at the moment. But they seem to be a hot mess for a moment. You got the Chicago Bears that's still trying to figure out what their situation is going to be because now that Mike McCarthy, and if you guys missed that press conference, I guess earlier today, no one understood what Jerry Jones was saying. But now Mike McCarthy's denied. And as we start with that, Beav, here, Mike McCarthy has honored his commitment to his contract.
Yes, sir.
The Cowboys have until the 14th. But what I don't understand is unless you decide it, and if you really believe that much in Mike McCarthy, why didn't you already have something in play on January 7th when he committed? That was it. But now all of a sudden you have Chicago saying or Dallas saying that nope, that they don't want him to talk now. My thing is it because they don't want him to stay in the NFC?
Well, I think part of it is you're in the ballpark. I think they're going to try to trade him, and I think this is also what's going to happen to Mike Tomlin. Where now Tomlin obviously has more leverage; he's been there longer,
Right.
but I think that's what's going to happen here. I think the best thing from Mike McCarthy is to probably take the Bears job. I think that's actually a good fit for him. I think it's a really good spot for him, believe it or not. I think he's one of the few guys I think that's a good fit in that position because he knows the division, having been the Packers coach and knows the Vikings and the Lions, obviously. He's an adult in a room of an organization and needs an adult. They're a bunch of clowns. Get Kevin Warren lurking all over the place. That guy tried to ruin college football in 2020. And me and a couple of other of my friends at Michigan and others stopped him. But no, and by the way, he's the reason why the Bears didn't hire Jim Harbaugh. How's that looking right now? I think that's what's going to happen. I think Mike McCarthy is going to get another job. And maybe the Cowboys are bringing back Kellen Moore or somebody like that. I don't know what Jerry's going to do. I don't think Jerry knows what he wants to do. It is what it is. It's a pretty screwed up situation. And if I mentioned this to Angel as they were coming on the air, Matt Campbell, the Iowa State coach, is also interviewing, I believe, with the Bears. He's an interesting name.
It is an interesting name. Very interesting. And again, Detroit, listen, it's been mentioned, and I think it's going to happen anyways. But to me, in my opinion, Detroit, unfortunately, like the Eagles did back in 2017, they're going to be broken up because right now Detroit is.
I think they'll lose at least one of the coordinators. I don't think both necessarily. You might be right, but I can almost guarantee at least one of them is gone. I think definitely Aaron Glenn's going to get a job.
Well,
we'll talk about this with our guest who's coming on who knows a lot of what's going on.
Yes.
Because he's covered a lot of these teams. He actually knows Dallas backwards, forwards, and sideways. People don't know that. That's where he started. Actually, I think he was there right until Jerry Jones bought the team, covering the team. So pretty crazy, yeah.
Yeah, he should have convinced them to maybe just not buy the team because again, nothing's happened since the 80s. Nothing's happened since
Well,
the 80s.
you know what? Gary will have some interesting perspective on all this, and because he's the Maras have owned the Giants his entire life. The Jets are kind of a shit show. It went from Mr. Hess to Woody Johnson, and the Cowboys were the Tech Scram group and those guys, and then Jerry Jones. So it's interesting to see these ownership group, and obviously I live in Detroit, where the Lions have been owned by the Fords, but it's Mrs. Ford, the daughter of the old owner, who's really turned this program around and hiring Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell, who people mocked and made fun of. Right now, if Sheila Ford woke up on the wrong side of the bed and fired Dan Campbell tonight, about how many NFL teams want to hire him, Angel? Around 30? Would that be a good number? Probably around 30. I think
Easily.
maybe Sean McVay might be the only guy who's safe.
Yeah.
That might be about it. I don't think Andy Reid would even be safe because he's going to retire soon. I mean, if the Lions put a for sale sign out front of Dan Campbell's house, he wins. He's a rock star and he's fun. I
Yeah.
mean, what else do you need? It's like
No,
having Tom Cruise as your coach, or Jack Reacher. It's pretty nuts when you think about it, but it's gonna be interesting to see. But you are right. I also think Brian Flores should get a job, but he's in a lawsuit, so that's weird. So I think you'll see Vrabel's going to get a job. Brian
I,
Flores should get a job. Aaron Glenn will definitely get a job. Those are the three that I can almost guarantee. I don't know if Ben Johnson is going to find the right job for him. He's very selective. He's got a great situation. I mean, I heard somebody joking earlier today. There's like 5 Hall of Famers starting for the Lions offense right now, which is amazing when you think about it. If you consider Goff over his career, because the statistics are going to be historic. But obviously, Sewell, Ragnow, Amar St. Brown, the tight end's a great player. The 2 running backs, I mean, they have really, this is like the Dallas Cowboys teams in the early 90s, the Jimmy Johnson, you know, uh, Dave Wanstead, and all those guys, the coaches there, Dave Campo, the defensive coordinator, and North Turner. But they had this staff is and team is really ridiculous. I'll say this: Aaron Glenn situation is interesting too. With the Jaguars, if he went down there, he could bring Mark Brunell, who's the quarterbacks coach of the Lions, which is another one to talk about. But and also I think Pete Carroll's out there too. He's another one. So there's a lot of these coaches, and we've seen the Bill stories out there, Belichick stories. So we'll see about that. He can't escape the college stuff.
the one thing I okay, so I don't understand, and it started with Pete this morning when Steve
Yep.
Weiss. Why is it that when a coach gets let go,
Mm.
the ethnicity card gets thrown into the mix? That's the one thing that if whether you're white, black, orange, purple, I don't care what you are. If you were not fit for the job, you just weren't fit for the job. Period. Because we've seen coaches, regardless of the color on their skin,
Mm.
have been let go because they weren't good enough. They tried.
Oh,
The team thought, what, it's going to be a good fit, it's going to be a good hire. Turned out to be not so much. And I think
I,
everybody could be in agreement that Gerard
I,
Mays wasn't a
yeah.
fit.
No, he was terrible. But again, the Crofts set him up to fail, as
Yeah.
as Robert said. The team stinks. Belichick probably stayed there 3 years too long. A real owner would have kept Tom and fired his ass in 20, and they didn't, and they're paying for it now, and I hope they suck forever. But the mail thing, it that had to happen. He further demonstrated why it had to happen by winning the last fucking game. I mean, you couldn't be more stupid. And that's an example. We're talking about this the other day, where Mr. Mara, the Giants owner, talked to Dayball about how to manage the end of these games, the end of the season, because the Giants had the first pick, and they blew it. And I see our guest is coming on. Here he comes.
Yep.
It's my main man.
Hey,
Joining us now live here on Bees World, a little after 6 p.m., Gary Myers, the author of Once a Giant, a
Look at
story
that,
of
Gary.
history, tragedy, and life after football, about 86 Super Bowl champions, the New York Giants. and apparently has a lot of knowledge what goes on there in Dallas as well. But Gary, first of all, welcome to the show, and thank you for taking some time tonight to join us here on the show.
Oh, it's my pleasure, guys. How you doing?
Good.
So Gary, whenever I bring a high level guy like you on, here's the $1 million question: how the hell did Gary Myers end up in Beav's world?
Where else would I rather be tonight than in Beav?
It's a good answer, Gary. My main man.
No, it's my pleasure to be on with you guys.
So,
So Gary and I obviously became friends because of my buddy who played quarterback in the NFL for a lot of years and the affiliation with Belichick and the Giants. And I grew up originally, Phil Simms was one of my heroes. And I grew up watching the Belichick Parcells teams. So I love this book. And one of the cooler things about it, and it's funny in the book because basically he talks to all the guys from the '86 Super Bowl champion team, and there were a lot of key guys with Parcells for a lot of his time, like Phil Simms, who famously Parcells wanted to play Scott Bruner instead of Phil Simms, which I think is hilarious. I still can't crack up with that. Lawrence Taylor, Harry Carson, George Martin, Carl Nelson, Billy Ard, Benson, Bart Oates, Mark Bavaro, who I think is hilarious because Mark Bavaro is famous for not talking. In Gary's book, his wife is saying to Gary, he won't stop talking to you. He loves talking to you. It's crazy. So I think it's a great book, Gary.
No, I appreciate it. I had a ton of fun writing it because I got to reconnect with all
Sure.
these guys
And
that
you
I
covered the
didn't.
team, obviously, yeah. So
Yeah, actually, in '86, Beav, I was in Dallas covering the
well, I was
Cowboys.
talking about that, but you saw them, and by the way, the Giants, I believe their first loss of the season was in Dallas
Right, it
that year.
was it was a
The draw
Monday
play,
night game. It was Herschel Walker's first
yeah.
game for Dallas.
And Parcells made fun of Lawrence Taylor after the game for losing on the draw play. He was out of shape.
Oh, did he? I
So
remember
it was
that.
pretty funny.
But I knew a lot of those Giants from
Sure,
before I moved to Dallas in '81, and then when I came back, the foundation of the team was still there.
sure.
And then as they all retired, I stayed in touch with them and saw them at different events. So
Yeah.
kind of hit the ground running when I reconnected with them to do the book.
So before we talk about the current NFL,
Hmm.
and I mentioned Phil Simms and some of the guys, what made that group so special? And another part, a guy that's had an incredible career is somebody like Sean Landetta, who just punted forever in the NFL. But
Yeah.
in summary, Gary, what made that team so special?
Well, I mean, that era of the NFL, the players were just different
Sure.
than they are now. Whenever I see those guys, I always tell Phil Simms, they don't make them like him anymore. Um,
By the
you know,
way, Gary, the great Phil Simms, 22 for 25, as Bill Parcells would say.
that's right. Um, so I think what really made them special is that, um, I mean, it was just a good group of guys.
Sure.
When they weren't making the money that they're making now. I think they needed the media a little bit more than they need now, for sure, because they used the media to help get their name out, hoping it would
Sure.
lend to
Carl Banks.
endorsements and sponsorships. So they wanted to try to have a good image publicly. Um, but what made that team really special is that a real brotherhood formed among them. That any team that wins a championship, there's a bond
Sure.
that's created, but it doesn't last a lifetime, and it really has with these guys. That they've come to their each other's aid if need be. Nearly 40 years later, I think the bond is as strong as it was, the day that they won the championship.
Yeah, I mean, one of the cooler things, and you mentioned this, is like somebody like George Martin, Phil McConkey, Carl Banks, who basically bought Starter and he's in the apparel business.
Yeah,
And so many of these guys, I mean, they're just, and obviously people know about Lawrence Taylor and Phil Simms and Mark Bavaro, some of the star guys, but and obviously the star coaches with Parcells and Belichick. But
yeah.
I just think it's awesome. Mo Carthon, Joe Morris, Lionel Manuel. I mean, I literally watched this team and love this team. But it's great for me.
It's funny that Giants have had four teams that won Super Bowls, and then you're going way back. They won championships, in the 50s.
With Frank Gifford, yeah.
Yeah. But this 86 Giants team, basically for this generation of fans, that is the team that is closest to their heart,
Sure.
more than the team that won in '90 against
Yeah.
Buffalo, more
90
than
team
even,
kind of came out of nowhere, though, with
yeah,
Hostetler and everything. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, and that was a great finish to that game with the missed field goal, and
Oh,
then
yeah.
the two Eli teams that beat your guy in the Super Bowl.
Gary, why did you do that?
Did you have
Go.
split
Okay, Gary.
loyalty in that game? Those games? I mean,
No,
you're
no,
rooting for
don't.
Tom,
Oh,
and
Gary. Angel, cut him off. No, I'm kidding. No,
I mean, the Giants were
no,
your team.
no, not then. When that changed in when Mister 12 showed up. No,
Okay, all right.
you just
So,
killed. You just killed Tom. By the way, Gary, good job.
um, but
And he's always liked you, so
I,
that's even funny. No, listen. No, it changed, and it's funny that you bring that up because I really don't have a team now. Um, but no, I grew up watching the Patriots, and the Giants were my second team, and I started to watch them a lot. And they obviously the Bavaro thing was cool because I went to his and his brother's camp when I was a kid,
hmm,
and I love Phil Simms, as you know. I mean, I have Phil Simms's book and probably read it 3 or 4 times a year. Monday
yeah.
morning quarterback. I love Phil
Mhm.
Simms. You know this, and it was interesting. We lost to them, but I've never been. The '07 game was the worst loss of my life, and
I thought you would say like we lost to us. How
yeah,
they
no.
count for both
Listen,
teams.
but listen, I love Bob Papa and Carl Banks. And I listen and I follow the Giants, and I have a relationship with Coughlin, because he's the BC coach, and
Hmm.
Jay McGillis was one of my dear friends. But no, I wasn't rooting for them and the whole Manning family. You know that, so please no.
Yeah, but anyhow, my point was that when I went around and did book signings and whatnot, people would tell me
Yeah,
that the '86 team, that was their team. And
sure,
a lot of it had to do because it was the first team, but also
sure,
because we had Parcells and Belichick and Taylor
yeah,
and Sim and Banks and Bavaro and Carson and all those guys that you mentioned. I mean, what a collection of great players they had on that team,
sure.
and what a superstar coaching staff. Parcells and Belichick on the same staff.
Ron Earhart too. Don't forget Ron Earhart.
But I was going to say just the two of them,
Oh
Beav,
yeah,
other than
what
Lombardi and
nine
Landry,
Super Bowls, 9 Super Bowl championships, right? How many Super Bowls have been? They got 9 of them.
9 championships. Well,
9 Super Bowls, and how many? What would it be like Super Bowl
well,
55?
nine including the one they lost together in New England,
Well, no,
right?
no, 9. No, I'm sorry, 8. 8 titles. They won between those two coaches. They won 8 Super Bowls. How many Super Bowls have we had? Like 56, 55?
I've lost track, but something like that. Yeah.
Angel, the
Um,
joke is Gary has covered half of those. I mean,
I covered 37 in a row.
I know.
Wow.
I'm messing with you.
No, it's more than half.
It is
There's
more.
aren't there like two guys who have covered all of them?
I'm not sure.
I think there were, right? Weren't there? And
Yeah,
there
the
was one of
list,
them was a Lions guy.
right. He passed away, right?
Yeah.
Um,
But no, it was a Miami guy and a Detroit guy, I thought.
yeah.
But no, it's amazing. No, listen, in reference to the '86 team, the '90 team had a lot of the same guys. But the biggest thing there was Phil Simms breaking his leg against the Bills, the Bruce Smith play late in the season. That Giants team was really good. The '89 Giants team was really good too. They lost on the Flipper Anderson play. But, there was Mark Collins, Carl Banks, Lawrence Taylor, Pepper Johnson, Gary Reasons, Marvin Guyton, and Greg Jackson were new. Leonard Marshall, Jim Burt was gone. They had Eric Howard at nose, Eric
Mhm.
Dorsey, Perry Williams was there forever. Offense, the whole line was new except for Bart Oates. And then Mark Ingram, Stephen Baker, Bavaro, Howard Cross, Bob Morosco, Otis, Dave Meggett, Maurice Carthen, Rodney
Listen,
Hampton broke his
look
leg.
at this. Are you reading from a roster or is this off the top of your
No,
head?
see, you know this. Once in a while I get one. I know something what I'm talking about, but no, it's just on top of my head. And yeah, that team was. But the funniest thing was with the '86 team. That was when Buddy Ryan first got to the Eagles, and the Buddy Ryan Eagles team was a big mess for the
Yeah.
Giants, particularly Phil. Phil had a lot of problems with them because they would hit him and turn him over, and he got beat up. I mean, the famous story where when the Eagles drafted Jerome Brown, what Parcells called Phil Simms and said, "Listen, your life's about to change. This guy's gonna be a nightmare for us," and it was pretty funny. But yeah, I mean, William Roberts was on both teams too.
Hmm.
He was another one. I said, Bart Oates was the center on both teams.
What about Stacey Robinson? Was he on the second one?
Yeah, but I
The
don't think he
first-
was playing much. Dave Duerson and Everson Walls are new. Most of the safeties are new. Greg Jackson, Myron Guyton, Everson Walls, and Dave Duerson, rest in peace. And Dave Meggett, who I loved, and he's a mess right now. But I love Dave Meggett as a player. But no, it was a fun team, and Gary. I mean, I love all your books. But this is just a great one. Now, talk about real quick. I know what you're working on now. The new book. It's the Brady Belichick thing again.
Right. Yeah, it's Brady versus Belichick, the dynasty debate, and it's really taking a hard look at who deserves the
It's
credit.
not hard to laugh right now, Gary, that you're going to talk about this with me.
What do you think about your guy reaching out to Belichick to see if he wanted to coach the Raiders?
Well, you need somebody to clean the bathrooms, Gary. I mean, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No,
Listen, if Tom lets it drop to the point that he asked Belichick whether he'd coach his team, then you got to let it go.
I know, but I don't necessarily think. I think he might just be talking to him to get his opinion on things.
Maybe,
And
but
as I messaged you last night, I thought there would be an on Vrabel, but we'll see. The Raiders. Here's the Raiders' problem right now. I mean, they have a lot of problems, but they don't have a quarterback. But they're in a division with 3 superstar coaches
yep,
who all now have quarterbacks, with
right.
Harbaugh and Herbert, Mahomes, Andy Reid. Now, if Andy Reid might retire soon, and then and Coach Payton and Bo Nix on his rookie deal.
Yeah, I don't think that Andy Reid's retiring until Patrick Mahomes is his looks like Aaron Rodgers. Otherwise, I think he'll stay there.
I got you.
Potentially, I don't think the Chiefs are going to win it this year, but
I don't either.
I do think that Mahomes will win at least one more. But
Okay,
to think
so
he's going to get to 7 that's just not going to happen.
Garrett, there you go. This is Angel. This is why Gary's on. He's saying that Mahomes will never get to 7. So there you go. That's the important thing.
Well, I'm not saying that to make you feel good, Beav. I'm just saying it because
Gary, say you're saying it to make me feel good. That's
okay,
what
I'm saying it to make you feel good. It's going to make you feel good.
I
But,
know.
the Chiefs are the number 1 seed, but so many of their games were 1-score games. And
Oh yeah, block
now they're
field
gonna have to be-
goals. Yeah.
they're going to have to be 2 good teams to get where they want to go. And I just don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting to see Coach Harbaugh going there with the Chargers.
Well, I think the Chargers will beat the Texans, and then they'll go to Kansas City next. And
Mhm.
as long as there's not another upset.
Yeah, because that's how that thing works, the 4 and 7, the seeding and everything, and the way.
Yeah.
Four
The lowest seeded team will go to
Yeah,
Kansas
the
City.
lowest seeded team goes to the one. We're going through this with the Lions because the Lions won't know who they're going to play till the Monday night game's over. So
Right, that's right.
it's interesting. So Gary, my producer boss here, Angel, is a big Eagles fan. What do you got on the Eagles? And if you have a voodoo doll of Nick Sirianni, Angel's not a fan. So go ahead. So,
Well, I think I didn't hear anything about today and Jalen Hurts and the concussion protocol. I
I
know
think
there
he's
was
going to be okay for the game.
okay because Kenny Pickett had also gotten hurt
Yeah,
a couple
ribs.
of games ago with his ribs. So as long as Hurts is playing, then I think they got enough to beat Green Bay. They might have to run Barkley a little more than they intended, but as long as Hurts is healthy, I give Philadelphia a shot for sure to get to the Super Bowl because they were playing as well as anybody, the second half of the season. It's interesting that Philadelphia is playing Green Bay, and they opened the season against each other. And
Totally forgot about that. Good call, Gary. Good job. Yes.
and why is this slipping my mind now? Who's going to Tampa this weekend?
Washington.
Washington, who played the Lions.
Washington.
The Bucks are
Washington,
pretty good.
right? Washington opened against Tampa.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, she got 2 rematches of season opener.
Gary, good job.
I just couldn't remember who it was. I knew that was what happened.
That is
So
weird.
isn't that strange that the season
That is
opener
weird.
rematch the season openers?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think this is going to be a really interesting playoff season. I'm looking forward to it because Baltimore, assuming they beat Pittsburgh and assuming Buffalo beats Denver, then Baltimore has to go to Buffalo, and then they'll likely have to go to Kansas City. So, and then if it's the other way around, if Buffalo wins, and they got to beat Baltimore and then go to Kansas City, that whoever goes against Kansas City will have really earned it if they get to the Super Bowl because they would have beaten, Baltimore, Buffalo winner will then have to beat Kansas City. So that's a rough road. But Kansas City did that last year. If you remember, they won in Buffalo
Yep.
and then they won in Baltimore. So you can get there without having home field advantage straight through. Those three teams in the AFC, I think, are really any one of those three can make it to the Super Bowl. I think.
Okay, so Gary, we'll talk about the NFC next, but I got some tie-in questions from one of my listeners.
Okay.
So I know you covered the Giants when the practice was at Fairleigh Dickinson in Madison, New Jersey. Did you cover the team then? Fairleigh
Yeah.
Camp was in training camp. So two related coach questions regarding Parcells and Belichick. Belichick was never going to be the Giants coach.
Right.
I know the inside story there because of your books and so forth. Talk about that. And also, how would Coach Parcells today coach with the social media world and on those two? So there's that one.
Yeah, let me do the second one first because that's really fascinating.
It'll be a real short answer.
Yeah, the thing is that I'm not sure. Forget social media for a second, but the way they have controlled training camp and practices,
Yes.
that there's no such thing as 2 days anymore.
Which used to make
Parcells would bring the
nuts.
Giants to training camp and practice them twice a day for 4 weeks straight.
I know.
With 1 day off a week. Maybe they're in pads once a week during the season, and he would have them in pads Wednesday and Thursday. I don't know how well he would adjust to that. I would assume he could because Belichick adjusted to it, but
Sure.
it's much harder to do it that way. And as far as social media, it would drive Bill out of his mind.
Without question, it drives the other Bill out of his mind. So,
yeah, and he make all these names up.
Oh yeah, FaceTime and in MySpace and yeah, I mean it was so
my
funny.
face and yeah.
So Gary, the second part, the why Belichick was never going to be the Giants coach.
Okay, yeah,
that's the other one.
Well, it's because of George Young, who was the Giants general manager at the time. He just completely disliked Belichick. Belichick is
and Tom Coughlin.
And Tom Coughlin. As far as Belichick, he was as rude to George Young as he was to anybody else, and George didn't like being disrespected like that. Plus, he felt that Belichick would not be able to command an entire room. He was fine in the defensive meetings, but he didn't think he'd be able to handle leading an entire team. Yeah, Doom. So what was really
Lawrence Taylor named them that, right? Was it LT that named him Doom?
I'm not. It might have been him or Jim Bird, one of those guys.
So if people don't know the story, so he was the guy who would tell the players they were cut. He would go knock on their door, and the players started calling him Doom because it was you were done if you saw Belichick coming. He's coming,
and the name stuck because
it fits.
It was always worst case scenario with Belichick about something happening.
Yeah,
but
no, it's nuts.
So Parcells goes to George Young around December of 1990.
I read this in your book today. Good job. Yeah.
And was unsure whether he was going to coach again the following season. And he says, "Do you want me to do everything I can to keep Belichick and or Coughlin?" And George said no. And then so Belichick goes. Coughlin takes a job at Boston College before the season is over, but sticks around through the Super Bowl. Belichick gets hired by Cleveland about a week after the Super Bowl, and Parcells doesn't quit until the middle of May.
Yep.
Now, there were some theories going about, because Bill never didn't like George after George.
The Schnellenberger thing. Yep.
The whole Schnellenberger thing. that this was his way of sticking it to George, was waiting until the middle of May
handing
to
him Ray
quit,
Hanley.
and he hired Ray Hanley. Well, that was going to happen whether Parcells quit the day after the Super Bowl or he would quit in May,
Yeah.
because he didn't want Belichick and he didn't want Coughlin.
Wow.
And then
What about like Al Groh? Al Groh, one of the other coaches.
Yeah, Al Groh was there. Yeah.
Yeah. Al Groh's linebackers coach, I think.
Yeah.
Coach Earhart. Coach Earhart was there. He'd been a head coach.
That's right. But you see, George just had an affinity for Hanley. They were both eggheads, these academic guys. And so George was drawn to Hanley.
So
he was going to be
you
the
got to
coach
talk
as well.
about this, Gary. Gary, you got to talk about Ray Hanley. So, Angel, Ray Hanley was like a genius IQ. The guy got banned from the casinos in Vegas. He could count cards. And this guy was was Parcells' running backs coach.
And he was his clock management coach because
he would meet with Phil Simms and quiz him. He'd be like, "Hey, we're going to run this play. What formation and stuff?" It's funny as hell that's the guy.
But he used to stand next to Parcells on the sidelines.
Yeah, when they use timeouts. Yes, great call, Gary. Yes,
timeouts and the play clock, and if you call timeout here, and then we kick, how much time will be left for the other team. Hanley was amazing with that. He was just a horrible head coach. He was over his head from day one. But the thing I will say in his defense is he inherited the most amazing quarterback controversy ever.
Yes.
Simms and Hostetler, two guys who had won Super Bowls.
Both very popular.
That had never happened. And even like you look ahead to San Francisco, Montana, and Young. Well, Joe was out of there before Steve won a Super Bowl. So, they're both great, future Hall of Fame players. But no coach has ever had to deal with picking between two guys who had won Super Bowls, and that's what Parcells left for Hanley to deal with.
Crazy.
And he just couldn't decide.
That's awesome. So, Gary, talk to me about the NFC. What do you think about the NFC? Let's talk about my Lions in the NFC.
Yeah, I thought that the winner of the game Monday night, became a really huge favorite to get to the Super Bowl because they both had such really great home field advantages, both Detroit and Minnesota. It just feels, right? It just feels like this is Detroit's year. And the job that Aaron Glenn did Monday night against that Minnesota offense with half his defense on injured reserve, truly amazing. And maybe that's the game that earns him the Jets head coaching job. I know that Aaron wants that job.
Your buddy Rich Cimini predicted that last week, even before the game, that Aaron Glenn would be the coach of the Jets, and I think he's right.
Yeah, I think he'd be a better choice than Rex Ryan at this point.
I agree.
Rex is just campaigning like you wouldn't believe. If some of these politicians campaigned as hard as Rex did, they'd probably win more elections, Rex is just out there on every radio show that'll have him saying that he's the best choice for the job. People forget, Rex coached the Jets for 6 years. They made the championship game the first 2 years, and they were bad the last 4 years. Then he goes to Buffalo, and they were bad for 2 years. And he hasn't coached since 2016. So I don't know. I don't think he's the best choice. And, it kind of goes to that theory, you can't go home again. And he's been out a long time. Now, Gruden went back to the Raiders, and Gibbs went back to Washington, and who else am I forgetting? Dick Vermeil.
Yeah.
He didn't go back to the Eagles. He went to the Rams and won a Super Bowl.
Angel would welcome that right now. He'd fire Sirianni tonight if you could set that up, Gary. Could you pull that off? Angel hates Sirianni. Angel hates Sirianni.
You really do?
Oh, my God, does he? Yes.
Yeah, but, he's done a good job there. They fell apart last season, but
that's
they lose 3 games this year, and they got to a Super Bowl in his first year or second year.
First year, and they went against Kansas City. What made me laugh on that behalf was that people were saying, "Well, the field conditions weren't the great, and that's why they lost." And then if you had,
the field was bad. That was the Arizona field. You're right. That's a good point.
And I thought that was a bad call on Bradbury.
The pass interference.
To call that for the first time in that situation, when that you can call that on any play, and to call it then, I thought that was a tough way to lose. That was a really tough way to lose.
Okay, so Gary, also people aren't aware of this. You and I talk about this a lot. You're a Hall of Fame voter.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me about this upcoming class. What's going on? What's that like for you? What's your process? All that good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think the most contentious argument when we have our meeting is going to be Eli Manning.
I'll vote
Five,
for him.
I'm definitely voting for him, and
I'll
I'm going to
vote
speak.
for him. Angel,
You
stop
saying?
laughing.
No, I definitely. I mean, what else do you want from a guy who wins 2 Super Bowls, beats an undefeated team, beats the Patriots again? I know it's a sore point with you, but each time leading a drive in the last minute or two to win those games
Can you
beats
mute Gary? I mean, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
um,
I'm kidding.
beats Favre and Rodgers at Lambeau Field in the playoffs.
I didn't even think of that, Gary. You almost like you do this for a living. That's an
Yeah,
awesome.
really.
That's an awesome stat.
The detractors are going to say he's got a 500 record, but so did Warren Moon, and Warren Moon never even got to a conference championship game.
True.
So I think Eli is very deserving. I'm not saying he's going to get in because I know there's a lot of people that are going to fight against it.
Oh, I don't think he'll get in the first ballot.
But I think that he should.
No, I think he should. Listen, you and I have talked about this. For the Hall of Fame, I would probably only have about 10 quarterbacks in. I wouldn't have Troy Aikman in. This is who I would have. The guys I have seen play. I would have Tom in, Joe Montana, Brett Favre, Steve Young, John Elway, Dan Marino. You either better be an historic winner or
Did you
have
leave that Manning
crazy
by
stats like.
accident or on purpose?
Say it again. Peyton.
Did
No,
you
Peyton.
leave
I'd have Peyton in. I'd have Peyton in.
Yeah, okay.
Peyton. I would not have Drew Brees in. I would have Peyton in.
How about Kurt Warner?
Yeah, I love Kurt Warner. Yes,
Now, why would you have Kurt Warner in over, say, Drew Brees?
because Kurt Warner won on multiple teams, and he took over teams that were trash, and they won.
Okay, but he had a big donut in the middle of his career.
I know, but so did Jim Plunkett. Jim Plunkett had the.
Yeah,
I mean,
I don't
every
think Jim Plunkett belongs in the Hall of Fame, and he's not.
yeah, that's somebody I think you should be in. But no, I'm hard on quarterbacks. Like you better either be an historic player or just have winning numbers in Super Bowls or be somebody like Joe Namath who contributed so much to the game with the merger. Dan
Mhm.
Fouts, crazy numbers. Dan Marino, crazy
Yeah.
numbers. Guys like that. But
Yeah,
we'll see. I think Eli's going to make it.
I put a lot of weight on championships for coaches and quarterbacks.
Agree.
So, I've asked the question of some of the voters, like, do you think that Dan Marino would switch careers with Eli Manning?
It's a good question. That is a really
You're
good question.
asking me?
Yeah, he's done.
I think Dan's probably tired of being asked about no Super Bowls, so maybe.
Yeah.
Do you have a good relationship with Dan? I mean, I wonder how would you handle
Yeah.
that question. Would you
I
rather be
wouldn't
him
ask
or Phil Simms?
Well, I mean, Phil won a championship, and he
Of
had
course.
the best completion percentage. So you're saying would Dan switch with Phil?
Yeah, that's my point. That's
Oh,
yeah.
oh, maybe.
And they're friends.
Listen,
So.
Phil would definitely would have been in the Hall of Fame 25 years ago if it was he not Hostetler that won that second championship for the Giants. But Phil has told me you can't take it for granted that they would have won it if he hadn't gotten hurt, because
You and I have talked about this. Yes, I love this. Go.
Hostetler's mobility
Yes.
won the games against San Francisco and Buffalo.
Yep.
And
Phil had problems with the 49ers that year. Didn't they lost that low scoring game there?
7-3.
Yeah.
Do you know the Giants played the 2 games against the Niners that year and didn't score a touchdown? But in the second
That's
game,
right.
they won the game 5 field
15,
goals.
15-14 or whatever it was. Yeah.
15-13.
The Matt Barr field goal. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy to think. So before we let you go, Gary, let's do like rapid fire.
Okay.
The second best quarterback in history of the NFL is?
Joe Montana.
See, you knew that well. Okay. I'm assuming you believe Lawrence Taylor is the best defensive player you've ever seen. Who's number 2? I want to hear this answer.
Number 2. It's not Aiden Hutchinson yet. I know you wanted me to say Aiden Hutchinson.
No. I have a defensive back that I view in a high regard. He's like a college coach now.
College coach. Dion?
No,
Oh, good. I was hoping you weren't going to say Dion because I would have said Reggie White, but who are you
Reggie
talking about?
White's up there. Reggie White's up there.
Um, Tell me who you're referring to.
Guy Tom played against a lot was a safety.
Safety.
Miami, Florida guy.
Oh, Ed Reed?
Bingo. That's my answer. Ed Reed. Ed Reed. Ronnie Lott's up there too. Reggie White's a
I
good.
think Ronnie Lott was a better player than Ed Reed.
Really? Because
Oh, yeah.
he played all three positions in the secondary. You
Reed was
see, yeah.
unbelievable ball skills. I
Oh,
think Ronnie Lott was a huge hitter.
yep.
He played corner early in his career. I would put Lott over Ed Reed. I put Reggie over both of them. Um, um, I'm trying to think.
Ray Lewis.
No.
Because there's other middle backers like Junior Sale, Jack Lambert, guys like that, Urlacher. There's other
Yeah, I
guys.
mean,
Harry Carson.
I put Singletary and Harry Carson over Urlacher. Ray Lewis was a great player, and he was a great leader. But to me, Reggie, I'll tell you this story. You might have read this in the book. In the USFL supplemental draft in 1984,
The Gary Zimmerman thing. Yep.
yeah, Parcells wanted Reggie White, and George wanted Gary Zimmerman, so they took Gary Zimmerman. Reggie went to the Eagles on the next pick. Giants could not sign Gary Zimmerman. He didn't want to play in New York, and they wound up trading him to the Vikings for 2 second-round picks.
There you go.
Can you imagine Reggie White and Lawrence on the same defense? Reggie played left defensive end, Lawrence right outside linebacker with
Leonard Marshall and Carl Banks and friends blending in.
Oh my God!
Oh my God! Eric Howard and rest. So Rich, who's another one of our hosts, was talking about the '89 Rams, the Flipper Anderson walk-off game with the Sheldon White penalty right before the Flipper Anderson walk-off. I remember that game too. That Rich is talking about.
Yeah, I didn't cover that game. I was
You still covering the Cowboys?
I was still in Dallas, and I came back in '89.
Sure.
No, wait a second. Hold on. I came back. I was back in New York,
Mm.
but I did not. I was covering a game in California. What game did I cover? Because I was not at that game.
That would have been the 49ers Vikings.
I might have covered that game because I was doing more national stuff than Giants stuff initially when I moved back.
Remember, the Cowboys weren't good then. That was Jimmy's first year.
Right. But I was out of Dallas at that point, anyhow. I just remember I watched that game on TV because I was not.
So Gary, Angel and I were talking about this earlier. You know the Cowboys organization pretty well with Jerry Jones and everything. What do you make of them right now? Where are they heading with Mike McCarthy and so forth?
Well, I thought they should have hired Belichick last year, and I think they should have hired Belichick now. I think he and Jerry Jones.
Sorry to interrupt you. Talk about that. You have an odd relationship, which you and I have talked about, where you didn't like Bill for a lot of years, and you had a really personal experience with him. Could you talk about that?
Yeah, with Belichick. You're talking about with Belichick, though, right?
Of course, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I crushed him in Spygate when I was writing for the Daily News, and he didn't really appreciate that. So we didn't talk for like 15, 16 years, and then I wound up sitting next to him at the Centennial Hall of Fame meeting in 2020 in Canton. And it just so happened I sat next to him, and I'm going, I got to sit next to this guy for 8 hours. He's not even going to talk to me. But when he sat down, they had lost to Tennessee 2 days earlier. Sorry, in the playoffs, Tom's last game for the Patriots.
Sure. Yep.
And we really had a nice time. I mean, I just broke the ice. I stood up, shook his hand, and said, good to see you. And we had fun all day. We talked back and forth. I was asking him questions. He was asking me questions. And I developed a pretty good email relationship with him. However, both your guy and Belichick never got back to me for me to interview him for this book that's coming out next September. I was a little disappointed, especially in Tom, that he never, I even asked his dad to reach out to him, which he did. And I guess Tom just didn't want anything to do with the subject. And, plus that whole Dynasty documentary, which I thought was really unfair to Belichick. I think a lot of guys like Kraft and Brady and Belichick, once that came out and there was a lot of backlash about it, probably didn't want to take part in discussing this subject to any extent. But I talked to an awful lot of people, so the book is pretty good. I have to
Good.
say that's good. But I do have, at least I thought I had a pretty good relationship with Belichick up until the point now where he hasn't gotten back to me. I even emailed him
Probably
the
doesn't
other.
want to talk about the Patriots anymore. You just made the good point about the dynasty.
Yeah, but
By
I
the way,
emailed him
Gary,
the
how do
other.
you think I did in the dynasty? Did you like my little small part?
I'm waiting for like the would it be Oscar nominations, Academy Award nominations, Emmy awards. I'm waiting to see
Oh my
who
God.
is best supporting
Gary's going
actor.
to be our number one guest now. He's going to be on all. He's going to be a weekly spot. So
No, I thought you were good telling that story about. And
yeah.
you've told me a story about 30 or 40 times about that autograph day where Tom was standing by himself
Oh
by
my
the
God.
tunnel, and the line was around the block for Henson's autograph, and I think it'll be a little different today if they
Yeah.
have
The
photographs.
the, the best part of that is they get me explaining the Tom Brady look of death, and then they go to the Tom Brady look of death, which I thought was really good.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
because Gary, you've probably seen the Tom Brady look of death covering his games for so many years. So and it was pretty damn funny that they
All right,
did
I
that.
have a question for you. Okay,
Okay, let's hear it.
you know that I became a huge University of Michigan fan when my son went to school there,
Yep.
which is kind of how I met you,
Yep.
and we became friends.
Yes, sir.
They were very difficult to watch this year, right?
Yes. By the
Tell
way,
me
my
how.
friend Max Bredesen is coming back, the captain of the team. He
I
just
just read that today.
Yep.
I'm excited. Bryce Underwood's his name, right?
Yes.
Okay, I'm really excited about him.
You should be.
Um, okay, I don't understand why Jaden Davis didn't play this year with the really pathetic quarterback play they had most of the year. And the guy was like a 4 or 5 star recruit, right?
Huh? You
Why
and I
did?
have to talk about this off air.
I'm sorry.
You and I can talk about this off air. There's things going on.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
There's private stuff that going on there. But
I couldn't understand why the guy didn't get on the field.
I think part of they were protecting his red shirt, I believe, is part of what's going on.
But then they go and recruit the best quarterback in the country, and so when is the guy ever going to play? Why protect the red
There, you're
shirt?
kind of answering your own question right there. With the portal and everything, everybody leaves anyways. So, no, we'll see what goes on. I mean, there's going to be competition. Now, Davis Warren's coming back, but he tore his ACL. I don't believe we know what Alex Orji is going to do. And the Fresno State, Mikey, the Fresno State portal
Yeah.
kid's coming. So we're going to be way better at quarterback.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, I think Underwood's probably got a really good chance of starting right out of the first game. But
From all indications, from what I got in bowl practices, he's incredible, and he looks like he's as big as Alex Orji. He looks like Michael Strahan. I mean, he
wow.
looks like a defensive end for Christ's sakes. It's amazing
Yeah.
how big he
So,
is.
but I saw that Jaden Davis said he's coming back, and
Hmm?
I was that was just curious to me because it seems that the other guy is the number one recruit in the country, and they paid him as much as I've been reading that they paid him
Hmm.
in the NIL money. You would think that, and I don't know anything. I've never seen Jaden Davis take a snap even on high school film,
Maybe he
but
wants to go to. Maybe he likes school here. Maybe he's got brass balls like Tommy. And he thinks he can beat Superman out.
yeah, if that's the case,
Small
then I
things happen
admire
like
that.
that. If I had Cade McNamara on right now, he'd tell you if his leg didn't fall off that he would have beat out JJ McCarthy. Just the way
Hmm.
these guys think. I mean, you've dealt with Phil Simms and Hostetler. That's why they're high level guys. Always think they're going to. That's Magic Johnson, Larry Bird trying to kill each other. Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier, Chris Everett Lloyd and Martina Navratilova. They all, Bill Russell, Wilt
Yeah,
Chamberlain.
I hope things work out for JJ. Um,
He's going to
I
be fine. JJ is one of my all-time favorite guys. Now you know this. Cade McNamara is like my son. So I wanted to hate J.J. McCarthy. I went through the Drew Henson, Tom Brady thing again. But I love Cade, but I grew to love J.J. because, when Cade got hurt, one of the guys who helped me get through it was J.J. And
Mm.
he's just a tremendous kid and amazing leader and quarterback. The best quarterback I've ever had here by a mile. It's not even close. And hopefully things will work out. Yes.
JJ was the best quarterback they ever had there?
College career. I know you're waiting for Tom to come out of the sky and kill me. I know. Look at Angel laughing.
Uh,
But no, JJ was incredible. Well, he lost.
See, I thought he was going to beat out
lost
Sam
one
Darnold if he
game,
didn't
one
get
game in
hurt.
college, Gary.
I know. And I thought it was a lazy narrative when people were criticizing him before the draft, saying, well, he didn't throw 30 times a game. Well, Harbaugh played the game like it was 1985 in the NFL. Ground and pound, great offensive line, two really good running backs.
Yep.
But when they needed him to throw, I just tell people, watch the last drive in the fourth quarter against Alabama in the Rose Bowl
Bingo.
that got him into overtime.
Of course.
Um,
That's what
so,
quarterbacks evaluated, Gary. We know that. Wins.
okay, so
Always.
he didn't play 65 games in college like Bo Nix, or whatever the number was, and he didn't throw 35 times a game. He didn't have to, but when they needed him, and they won every game by 30 points,
Yeah.
when they needed him to play well, he played well. Now, he did have two pick sixes against a very mediocre TCU team in the semis the year before, but that's a game.
Led them back late in the game.
I thought the coaches lost that game on several fronts, having Mullins, who they just converted from linebacker. Now, he turned out to be a really good running back this year.
Sure.
But 2 years ago, to hand him the ball at the goal line, it might have been his first carry of the year for whatever.
It was when Corum was hurt. Corum tore up his knee. When Blake tore up his knee.
I know, but give the ball to Donovan Edwards there, or have JJ run it.
Not really a goal line guy, but I know what you're saying.
Yeah, and then on that touchdown to Quentin Johnson that put the game away,
the double crossers. Yep.
They ran an all-out blitz when they were having no trouble getting to that. I can't remember that quarterback's name. The red-haired kid. I think it was red-haired kid.
That's what it says on his driver's license, Gary. The TCU kid. It's I forget his name too. Yeah. I should remember his name. He ruined my life.
But that's. I mean, Jesse Minter goes on blitzes when they were getting to him just with a four-man rush or whatever, and so they leave Quentin Johnson in one-on-one, and he beats the guy. I'm sure it wasn't Will Johnson, and they get like a 70-yard touchdown to put the game away. When I thought they were in good position there to come back and win that game, so I thought the coaches lost that game.
I'm not going to comment any further on this because it'll implicate myself.
We don't want that happening.
No, but you are a very astute observer of football, Mr. Gary.
Well, I have to say that I absolutely loved. I mean, beating Ohio State, was it 4 years in a row now?
Yes.
The one this year might have been the most satisfying because they had no business winning that game.
Yes.
But Ohio State's probably going to win the national championship. But they didn't beat the Wolverines. Go Blue.
See, Gary is a valued guest and contributor here to Beav's World, and Angel's laughing. And by the way, the TCU quarterback was Max Dugan.
Max Dugan, that's right.
Max F.M. Dugan, as I changed his name. Now, Gary, before we let you go, we got a closing question. I love this one.
Okay.
A couple guys you can think of the top of your head in the NFL that you don't think were great players that don't get talked about enough. Like somebody off of the Giants team in the 80s that we just discussed. So somebody like Mark Collins or Maurice Carthon. Somebody like that. So somebody, like a guy to me that always comes to mind is Al Toon. I thought Al Toon was awesome.
Well, from that Giants team, I would say the guy that hasn't got the respect he deserves is Leonard Marshall. It took them 10 years to put him in the Ring of Honor for the Giants, and he can't get any traction going in the Hall of Fame senior committee. I thought he was a great player. Everson Walls is my guy from Dallas.
Oh, awesome. And I
People
love Gary, and you covered this in the book and in some of your other writings. How when Belichick got him, he thought he was a lousy tackler, and he taught him how to tackle, and he had that saving tackle on Thurman Thomas in the Super Bowl.
and Belichick moved him to safety, calling the signals in that Super Bowl. And with the book behind me, The Catch,
Yeah,
all people remember is Everson gave up the winning touchdown to Dwight Clark.
that's right.
They forget, they forget in that game, he intercepted Montana twice and recovered a fumble.
Weren't there like 11 turnovers in that game?
Yes. Well, no, I don't think there were 11, but the Niners turned it over 5 or 6 times in that game and still won the game.
Since two of the
Um,
best defenses in the league, the Doomsday and obviously
yeah,
the 49ers, all their young defensive backs and
that's right.
players like that are nuts. But
You
okay,
know
so
your
Gary,
stuff. You know it.
I'm trying, Gary. Gary, I got no real social skills, so I got to do this all day.
Well, I'm looking forward to one day coming back to Ann Arbor.
Yep.
And are you still hanging out in that Italian restaurant in town on
Yeah,
campus?
Pizza House. They can't get rid of me. I'm like the roaches. I won't go away. No, that's where I work. Yeah, I'm there. I
Okay,
think I
so
can get you a table anytime you need one, Mr.
I
Myers.
I think I was more bummed when my son graduated than he was because he can go back to Ann Arbor whenever he wants. They have
Yeah.
little reunions and stuff. We went once a year for a
Yeah.
football game, and I just loved it. And
How
what
big
a
a
great,
difference, Gary, is college to the NFL crowds? I mean, it's different when you're working at the NFL, but is there something different in the crowds?
well, yeah, I think that the college crowds it's much more. How do I want to say this? It's like much more from the heart. I think there's
Yeah,
much more of an emotional investment in a real college town and in their team than the NFL is a business.
sure.
And I always tell my friends who get so wrapped up in the outcome of Giants and Jets games and they can't sleep. Even at my age, my friends can't sleep. When they lose a tough game, and I just say, just remember, you care about this more than the players do. They're out after a game partying with their friends, going into the city, having a great time, where you're home, can't eat dinner, you feel nauseous, and you can't sleep at
Yeah.
night. But the guys who played in the game, it's okay. As soon as they leave the locker room, it's over. They're on to the next. And um, college games, I can understand feeling that way about when your college team loses. Uh, when a pro team loses, I always just tell my friends, forget about it because it's out of the players' minds as soon as they walk out of the stadium.
The 24-hour
And
rule
that's to me is
almost.
the biggest difference. Yeah,
Point.
I love going to the big house. That was so much fun.
I live 2 blocks away, so
Even though one game I was at, we had one of those typical, if you don't like the weather in Ann Arbor, to wait 5 minutes, it'll
yeah,
change.
I know. Yeah,
Um, there was just an absolute deluge with about 2 minutes to go in the first half. And my wife and I left because we were just getting drenched. All the kids were already gone because they party so much before the game. By halftime, they got to go home and take a nap. And it's true. If you look up at the student section in the third quarter, unless it's a really tight game,
yeah.
they're gone. That's why they're late getting to the game and they're early leaving because they pregame on what's the name of that street where all the frats are at? See, I've been gone there for a
State, and South
while.
University, and yeah.
Yeah,
Who?
the
I
one
mean,
that crosses with State, like where Ross is
Hill,
at.
Hill Street, Hill
Hill,
Street.
Hill, Hill
That's where
Street.
I live. I live right by there.
Yeah, my son's frat was on Hill Street, and
There you go.
what an amazing time! I'm just proud of all those kids that they made it to the game after, for noon games starting to party at 7 o'clock in the morning. You got to have a lot of endurance to do that.
So Gary, we can't thank you enough for coming on. Before we let you go, Super Bowl
Mhm.
pick. Let's hear it. Wow, he's thinking. He's pondering, Angel. He's got
Who's this
Mr.
from?
Eagles and he's got Mr. Lions here. So
Were you asking me a question? Or you asking somebody else a
yeah,
question?
the Eagles, Super Bowl. Give us a Super Bowl pick.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. I really, I'm sorry, Angel, but I really do think it's the Lions' year. The week off will do them some good. I haven't been keeping up to see whether they
But
could get any of the.
Gary, you're doing him a favor because they're going to fire Sirianni out of a cannon. So that
Mm.
he wins by losing. So
Oh, all right. Then I don't feel bad about saying.
look
I
how
think
much
that
he's smiling.
yeah, I think the Lions are going to get to the Super Bowl, and the week off will do them some good. I hope that if they make the Super Bowl, Aiden Hutchinson can come back.
That's my
He
boy.
seems
You
to
know
be
that. That's my
what?
guy.
Yeah,
That's my guy. You know that.
but he's a better pro than he was in college. He was great in college. I
I
felt so bad for him when he got hurt.
Oh, it was awful.
It's a brutal game. It's
Yeah,
brutal.
it
It
is.
is. It is. And you've done a tremendous job covering it. You're a longtime friend of mine, and we can't thank you enough for coming on Beav's World, Gary.
It's my pleasure, Beav. Angel, it's good to see you. And whatever you want to happen to the Eagles, I hope it happens. I'm kind of confused whether you're an Eagle fan and you want to win, or you're an Eagle fan, you hate Sirianni, so you want to lose. So whatever's good for you is good for me.
Sure, no, it works, Gary. Because again, Nick, he drove his bananas last season with the way it ended up happening, and then I think they find a way to win against Green Bay, even without Jalen Hurts. I believe with Tanner McKee. But then, yeah,
Tanner
I've said it all season
McKee.
long. They are not going to the Super Bowl. They're not. It's going to
All
be
right.
unfortunate.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah, for sure. Gary, thank you so much. We do appreciate it. And by
Thank
all
you,
means,
Gary.
when you have time, always come back to the show.
Gary's book,
Absolutely.
baby. Gary's book right here, baby.
Yes.
Thank
So
you.
good.
All right.
Thank you, Gary.
Take care, guys.
Thanks, Gary.
Thank you.
What did KC and the Eagle?
That was a pretty good guest right there, Angel.
Very, very good guest. Very knowledgeable. No, and that's what you want too, because when you have someone who has a lot of history, especially as much as Gary covered the Giants, and I'm pretty sure, I mean, you could have easily had a 3 or 4 hour conversation with them.
Oh,
Just,
without question.
you know,
That's what we
yeah,
do when we talk.
yeah, no, but based upon what he's known from the Giants from back in the day, I mean, that's just one of those things that he needs. He can turn around and really give you a lot of useful knowledge of stuff that happened back in the day. And that's what when you have historians, when you have guys that can remember things from just, I mean, the back of their head, that's exactly what you want. So no, it was a great guest for sure. It was a good time. I'm quite sure we could have gotten a little more into the Giants too, because that's just going to be the great debate. What's going to happen with the Giants? But they believe in their GM. They believe in the head coach. They retain them both. Now it's a chess match. Who is going to take that position? And then again, now that McCarthy's been denied or blocked, as the Cowboys would say, from talking to the Bears, that is the most intriguing thing so far. I want to see I don't think Dallas is going to keep McCarthy. Now, I think it was you that
I
you
don't
mentioned
either.
that they're planning on trading, but if you're going to trade him, how can you trade him when he's out of a contract? That's what I don't understand.
Well, I mean, it's interesting. I wonder what his contract language is.
Yeah, but even still, I mean, but if you figure if like he's already done with his contract. He was done with his contract yesterday
Okay.
per Dallas Cowboys. So that's why I don't understand. Somebody had said, well, maybe they're going to trade him for what? When you're done with the contract, call me crazy, but if I'm an outside contractor and I get hired by Beav World Incorporated, and you hire me for 1 year and a day, when that
I own you, Angel.
yeah, but if you turn around, if it's a year and now day 2, I'm done. Like I fulfilled my contract unless you give me an extension or something else. So I don't understand the whole thing where they're talking about possibly trading him unless Jerry Jones is foolish enough to give him a deal and then turn on and trade him. But I just don't see it happening. And then you have, of course, where it went out much earlier this morning, with several teams and Belichick reaching out to him, including Tom Brady, that wants him out there in Vegas. Now, his son was with Bill on his way to North Carolina. Everybody knows his son would be the successor to the North Carolina Tar Heels. But I think what the penalty is $1 million if he decides to walk away. But it almost reminds me of Eli Manning with the Chargers and then want to go to the Giants. Would Bill really do that if it comes down to it? And then how much disappointment is it for North Carolina?
Well, they got a lot of publicity. I mean, they're a basketball school and they got a lot of publicity with their football team. But it's a good point. Angel, can we take a quick break? I got to take a call real quick, but take a break. Give me like 2 minutes. Can we do that? We good?
Sure. Yep.
Okay, boy. Let's do
Yeah.
it. Be right
Take
back.
a break. All right. We're coming up here on the first break. It is about 12 past the hour here, or 13 past the hour, 7 o'clock. Of course, 4:13 up there on the left side of the world, including California. And one thing, as Beav's stepping away there for a second, I just got an alert saying that the wildfires are the size of 2 football fields put together at the rapid rate that they're going. So, listen, God bless the folks. It is nighttime now, nightfall as well it's going to be soon out there in California. So, again, anybody who has friends, families out there, pray for these folks that they're able to get out of harm's way. It doesn't matter. Lose whatever it is out there. Just take important documents, your children, your husband, wife, your animals, but get out of harm's way. So it's a crying shame what's happening out there in California. But thanks to Gary Myers once again for coming on with us. We'll take our first break here with our local sponsors. Then we'll get into some senseless type of commercial breaks. And then we'll come back here as you're listening to Beav's World live on Sports Radio 102.9 The Game. Brought to you by the Coastal Sports Network.
Hi, folks. This is Gerard Moynihan of Moynihan Lumber, and I would like you to know that our company has been selling Anderson windows for over 60 years. See the complete line of Anderson windows at any of our 3 locations in North Reading, Beverly, or in Plastown, New Hampshire, or at MoynihanLumber.com.
Hey, everybody, it's Pete Shepard from the Coastal Sports Network. Want to tell you about my good friend Lou DiMuzio and his company. Lou is the president and founder of Ace Technology Advisors. They're big-time tech specialists. At ATA, they're able to craft, implement, and manage the best and most appropriate solution for your business. They leverage their industry-leading experience and their portfolio of technology partners to improve your best practices and infrastructure. So you can get a hold of them at 888-599-4223. That's 888-599-4223. Check them out on their webpage, www.acetechadvisors.com. That's www.acetechadvisors.com. Or you can email them sales@acetechadvisors.com. Check out my friend Lou DiMuzio and Ace Technology Advisors.
Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting. A teenager. Learning the lingo.
Today I'm going to help parents translate teen slang. Now, when a teen says something is on fleek, it's exactly like saying, that's rad. It simply means that something is awesome or cool. Another one is totes. It's exactly like saying totally, just shorter. As in, I totes love going to the mall with Becca. Another word you might hear is jelly. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will think you're, rad just the same. To learn more, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
This is the story of a very special woman. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician or an entrepreneur. Her knowledge was limitless and still is. She could also make monsters disappear, especially those that lurked in the shadows under the bed. Once, this woman put back together a teenage girl's broken heart, which had been shattered in 1,000 pieces, just by giving her a bear hug. She masqueraded as a regular person at work, but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need to help, complete with tips and resources at aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
And just like that, we come back here live into the studio. You're listening to Beav's World here on Mondays and Wednesday evenings from 6 o'clock till 7:30 at night. And then after us here on a Wednesday evening, it is Talking Hoops with Coach Johnson, Coach Mack, and Doc Riley, as they will get hot and heavy into the NBA, WNBA, and of course, as Coach Mack likes to say, her babies in the G League. And there's tons to talk about in the NBA. Rich will have his NBA conversation possibly tomorrow when he does his audio only version of the show from 5 to 6 p.m. The best way to listen to it, go to sr1029thegame.com, find the Drive with Q, the button, and then you will see on the radio player on the air now, and then you'll see his icon up there. And then you guys can go right on in and then listen in. And I don't know why in the world today it didn't change as far as when I have Beav's World on, as far as the radio icon, but that's okay. It happens. It's no big deal. But we've got some, let's see, what is it? We got about some 12 minutes here.
We got some breaking news. I got two things for you.
Oh, boy.
Jalen Hurts update. Limited practice today, which is good for you. And with the fires in Los Angeles,
yeah,
the Rams game might be moved to Phoenix, Arizona, where the Cardinals play. That's potentially in play.
That's going to be a lot of logistics. Hello, Rick. How are you?
What's up, Rick?
That's good.
Mickey, my media critic, by the way.
Yeah. Logistically, it's going to be, I mean, they had to do something. I thought maybe they go to San Francisco, but I guess Phoenix would make a lot more sense just because of.
Well, remember, the 49ers situation is really interesting. And obviously, I know a lot about their team because one of my buddies is on their team and is Kathy's favorite team. It's in Santa Clara, so it's not really San Francisco. So it isn't like an hour. It's over by where San Jose is.
Right.
So it's not as easy. Logistics and so forth isn't as easy. It's a nice stadium, a really nice facility. But also remember, when these guys have their season ends, they might be doing stadium construction and so forth. You don't know what's going on and what they're using. And when the season's over, these guys, they have a Taylor Swift concert or the WWE or auto racing. I know you had the NASCAR guys on earlier. So stuff like that. You never know what's going on. And Joey B, I'm sorry I didn't get to ask Gary about Belichick with UNC in college football. But listen, and Gary kind of explained this. College football is like pro sports now. It's a salary cap. They have money. He asked about Jaden Davis, and it's all business. These guys, it's impossible to build depth. Guys leave and move around. And this even before the NIL and so forth, we had Kyler Murray was a transfer. Baker Mayfield was a transfer. Joe Burrow is the most famous transfer. He was never going to play at Ohio State. He was the first pick in the draft. So stuff like that happens. I don't think Belichick being an older guy and having an NFL background is going to be a big deal in college football because I guess he gives him an advantage because he can say, hey, I can get you to the NFL, and that's what these guys are trying to do.
Yeah. Well,
and of course, when your buddy Sirianni gets fired, he can go work for Bill there. So there you go, Angels. I'm kidding. So it was funny. Gary gave you a layup there at the end on Sirianni. That was funny.
He sure did.
He's almost done. It's like he's done this before. Gary was great. Oh my God, is he awesome?
No, he is.
Great. His books are amazing too. That the Giants book and the catch, the Dwight Clark one is just awesome.
No, he was. That was good. By the way, Rick says, hold on for a second. He says,
Great
what
question,
is about the Rams and Chargers? Both won the conferences and what they would do since, hang on, I just missed it, since it's the same stadium. Yeah, well, but anyways.
Butts, candies, and nuts. There you go, baby.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. But no.
It's actually not that dumb a question. I mean, that's a really good question, and you're dealing with dummies who decide it. But no, I mean, there's like an hour between the games, right? How they do it. They spread it out. But, I mean, I don't think it's very likely that the Rams and Chargers both get that far. Particularly the Rams. The Rams are going to have a hard time.
That they would.
Yeah, but they're going to go through the Lions.
It's good if first of all, I don't. Everybody thought this morning I was kidding around. I don't know. Maybe they think I still am, but to me, I think, and it's you guys know more than anything else that when it comes down to it, as much crap as I've given Nick Sirianni this season, I think he learned when he had to make a game plan and it failed. Now, to me, he's able to make that game plan come together with Tanner McKee. That's just my thing. I think if limit his practice, I believe Green Bay is beatable as long as, once again, the remainder of the team remains healthy. But to me, I'm not worried about as much if it comes down to it and Jalen Hurts can't play and he was limited in practice. That's fine because if the Eagles were able to pass the wild card round, then at least he's back. I would say then 80% healthy coming into the divisional round. But if you know that he's been, and as you had mentioned, people tend to forget about his concussions when he was in college. It had to have affected him more than what people thought. And even though it
But
may not look like it was something big on the field, but again, you can see where his head was mushed into the ground, and it doesn't take much. Then again, as
remember, it's Trevor Lawrence.
right, as
Yeah.
many times they tell these guys, if you start your slide early, and I don't know why even some of the games this past Sunday, Baker Mayfield decided you want to toss yourself head first
Okay.
to get the first down or more yardage.
Well, Baker did that. I think Baker did that as part of the strategy to wake his team up. That's why I think he did it.
Well, but in the end, if he gets concussed, then what was the point?
Yeah, that's. But again, you're talking. I mean, Baker Mayfield's the same guy who broke his shoulder trying to tackle a guy on an interception.
Correct.
So we'll see. But yeah, I mean, yeah, Angel might be the only guy if he was an Eagles fan. If they win the Super Bowl, he would fire Sirianni. So
I would.
you would fire you. You hate this guy. It's so funny. You're the nicest guy, and he makes you nuts. It's funny.
I would. They would win. I let him go up to the podium, and as soon as he walks down for the podium, say, "Hey, Nick, thanks."
Take him back of the head. Boom, gone.
He would just. I would just tell him, "Here's your Uber ticket to ride back."
Like Joe Pesci in Casino.
Yeah.
It was a Casino or Goodfellas when he gets no, it was Goodfellas was when he gets shot in the back of the head.
Yep.
Casino was when he got thrown in the ditch and beaten to death.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was Joe Pesci knows how to die in movies. Jesus.
Sure does.
But yeah, so no, that was no, it's gonna be interesting. And I think talking about Dallas and Pittsburgh, what's gonna happen with Mike Tomlin and Mike McCarthy, because it's both very public that particularly the Mike McCarthy thing that he wants to talk to other teams, and you wonder what Jerry's going to do. I didn't see the press conference you referenced earlier, and Gary and others were messaging me about it. So it's interesting. But Gary knows the inner workings of how these things go on and how these organizations work and operate.
Yeah.
So it's pretty amazing, and he's old school reporter when they would do real reporting instead of what they read on Twitter and so forth. But it's interesting to see. Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. Rick, which is true, he said he offered a trip to Philly. He offered me a trip to Philly last week when we were together at Tampa Joe's. And I told him no. Even if they win the Super Bowl, I am staying right here. I'm not going back because my luck, I'll go back home. And I made it through a war in the military, but I ended up going back to Philly and for some stupid nonsense, end up getting freaking killed over there. So I'm good. I will stay right here. So I have no problem going to Tampa Joe's, go celebrate with everybody here, the local Philadelphians, but I am not going back home. I saw the one parade. I was golden. There'd never be anything better than Jason Kelsey's speech. I don't care who does what, and Brian Dawkins was there. I'm good for a lifetime. I hope they win another one. Don't get me wrong. I really do, except for I'm not going back to Philly for the parade. I will stay right here in beautiful state of Florida and in Tampa Bay. So I'm good. All right.
What do you think about the Buccaneers' chances in their game?
They're going to win.
I think so too.
Yeah, they're going to win. I'm not convinced that Jaden Daniels and crew are coming to Tampa and taking it away from Tampa. To me, Tampa right now seems like the more experienced team with Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans, Bucky Irvin. Dan Quinn, I understand you've been there before in a playoff situation, but to me right now, the Buccaneers are playing lights out. And I don't think the Commanders are on that same level. Great year by them, don't get me wrong. And even Q picked them to
one of
win
the stories of the league, yeah.
Yeah. So no,
I mean, it's cool to see. Angel, we remember the Joe Gibbs teams, and Gary was talking about them earlier. The Joe Gibbs teams, and then Snyder ran them into the ground, and it's nice to see because that's a great fan base. That was an historic team, and it's cool to see them good and hitting on that quarterback.
Yeah. Well, speaking of, because I will not be on air on Friday because I am taking a trip to Daytona International Speedway with City Garage Motorsports as we will be reporting up there for the next 2 days, Thursday and Friday from the racetrack.
There you go, baby.
So since I'm not going to be up there, we'll go through the gamut of the games here as we're closing out the
No
show.
Martinez and company. I'm pissed now.
Yeah.
Just ruined my Friday on a Wednesday, Angel. What's wrong with you?
Well, listen,
I'm kidding, buddy. You know I love you. Go have fun with your NASCAR buddies.
Nah, that's what we've got to do. We got to cover it to make sure that we get enough going on here for the Arkham and Art series. But you have,
Angel, you mean you can't be in two places at once? What the hell's wrong with you, man?
I try. It doesn't work out too well, but I try.
You do. Listen, I'm being completely serious. You're like the yeoman of what we do. You do everything. You and I are texting, checking in all day. I'm hitting you and Pete up, and you're the ace, man. We love you.
I try. Well, I appreciate it and love you.
Don't try. People who try fail. Do. I sound like Yoda now. You like that?
Yeah.
Young Skywalker. No, I mean, yeah, I got you. But yeah, rock. So let's do the games. Go ahead. Hit me up.
First one, Saturday, Texans, Charger. Who takes that one?
Everybody's betting the Chargers. I'll take the Texans.
Yeah, I think everybody's on this high horse that the Chargers somehow or another are just going to take it. I'm the same way too. Steelers, Ravens, I'm not convinced. And even though Lamar Jackson said today that the only reason why they haven't gotten over the hump is because he gets antsy for the games. But to me, Ravens don't have enough. Steelers stopped their 4-game slide with a win in Baltimore.
Wow. I completely disagree. I think the Ravens are going to smash the Steelers. Steelers look bad at the end of the year.
Bills, Sunday, 1 o'clock against the Broncos. Broncos right now are riding the hot ticket. The Bills look beatable. So I'll start with you to see which one is your pick.
Okay, this could be my upset pick, Denver, but I just can't pick against Josh Allen. I think the Bills, but it's going to be a heart attack game.
Yeah, and the weather doesn't matter because Denver is just as equally as cold, if not.
I haven't seen what is the. I mean, the weather's always bad in that place. That place is hell.
Yeah.
What is the weather supposed to be?
I believe in the frigid temperatures for Sunday because this blanket of the blue.
That's what it says. It says frigid.
That's what it is. But
yeah, I mean, that's one of the interesting things about the playoffs this year. There's a lot of cold weather teams.
Yeah.
A lot of really bad. And now there's a couple dome ones too, led by my Lions, but it is pretty interesting.
Then you have on the NFC side of the house, Packers, Eagles. To me, and I'm telling you, I don't know why. I woke up this morning with 100% confidence behind Nick Sirianni. I'm going to have to get my blood checked or something else to figure out when the world happened, but I have 100% confidence that the Eagles will beat the Packers on Sunday, 4:30.
Aliens abducted you overnight. You're supporting Sirianni. What the hell's happened to you? What's in that water you're drinking?
I don't know.
I like the Eagles too. I think I didn't like what I saw in the Packers the other day against the Bears, and Christian Watson going down is a big deal. I think the Eagles are probably the second best team in the NFC.
Then we have the Commanders and the Bucks Sunday 8 o'clock NBC, which should be a really good game. Yes. Commanders finished up 12-5 for the season. Bucks finished up 10-7. I believe that is my guy there, Jerry. His Lobster 22. Angel had a vision. I did. I'm telling you, I did. It is. It's Jerry from Rhode Island. But yeah, listen, I did. I had a vision. I don't know what else to tell you guys. But Commanders, Bucks, to me, this is all Bucks all day leading up to this Monday night.
I agree. The Bucks are very dangerous.
Last game would be, I don't like Monday night playoff football. I think it's absolutely absurd and ridiculous. But nonetheless,
I think they've overdone it.
Yeah. Vikings, Rams, to me, even though the Rams are just one of those teams that you never know, truthfully, which one's going to show up.
Yeah.
Somehow or another, they find ways to get in. You got the Vikings, which I think were highly exposed by the Detroit Lions.
I agree.
The edge would end up going to the Vikings, but I think the Rams really, truly find a way to win.
I think the Rams are going to win too. And that could be make it really interesting for the Lions.
I think so. No matter
you know what that means if the Rams win.
Yeah.
Where they go.
Rams?
Actually, how would it work? No, wait a minute. The Bucks would be 4. So the way the Lions seeding, whoever the Lions are going to play is the lowest seeded team left from 4 through 7.
Correct.
Because they can't play 2 or 3 until the championship.
Right.
So they will get whoever the lowest seed is left. So if chalk happens, it'd be the Buccaneers.
Yep.
So, and that wouldn't be fun either. Remember last year, Mike Evans went for about 175 on the Lions last year in the game here, and Baker was driving them to win the game through the interception of Derek Barnes.
Yep. But let's forget the lonely loss this year too by Detroit was from.
Well, the Lions lost 2 games. They lost to the Bills and the Bucks.
We don't count the Bills. It was the Bucks was the more important one.
The Bills came in and beat them like yesterday's eggs. That was bad if you watch that game.
But I like that one.
That was when everybody quit on. Everybody turned on the Lions and didn't think they could win.
Well,
And Dan and friend. Yeah, I mean that was I mean no, the Bucks. But that Bucks game, you remember that game? It was like the 5th game of the year, and Goff was bad. He was bad in the red zone, and they lost like 21-17.
Yeah.
So, but no, hey, listen. The Bucks beat the Eagles and the Lions, but they also lost to Kirk effing Cousins twice. Explain that to me.
I know.
So, I mean, that's Kirk effing Cousins is his legal name, by the way. So no, it's a strange, odd year. I mean, the Bengals aren't in the playoffs today because they lost the week 1 opener to the goddamn Patriots. That team could have won the Super Bowl if they made the playoffs, and I'm completely serious. The Bengals are that good, yet they weren't ready the first game of the year, and they paid for it. That's why they're not playing now.
Yep.
It's amazing when you think about that they lost the 2 Ravens games, and Burrow threw 9 touchdowns in those 2 games. It just certain teams and organizations just don't know how to win. And they had the year they did with Hendrickson leading the league in sacks and Jamar Chase winning the Triple Crown and Burrow, and they still didn't pay either T. Higgins or Jamar Chase. And I'm telling you this right now, I think they're both going to leave. They both won't. In the next 2 to 3 years, they won't be on the Bengals. Watch.
Okay, that would be really interesting.
I think they'll let Jamar Chase get through his 5th year, then they'll franchise tag him and he'll leave. And I think Higgins is going to leave in this offseason. And Joe Burrow is probably going to hold hostages and get out of Cincinnati like Carson Palmer did. I can't believe that the Bengals have completely screwed the mismanagement of the roster. Very similar to what the 49ers did. I tell Kathy this all the time about how stupid they were to pay Ayuk. It's not worth it. And it's the same thing the Dolphins are going through with knucklehead Tyreek Hill.
Yep.
You don't pay knucklehead wide receivers.
It's not worth it because in the end, now you're literally paying for it now. So.
By the way, I just did a ringing endorsement from Mike Evans, who is a great guy wide receiver. So when you have a high-level guy playing a position where there's a bunch of knuckleheads, you should value that. And that's why Mike Evans, I mean, look how nuts the Bucs players went when he got his record. That was a pretty cool thing. It was like the players, Calvin Johnson's another one when he was playing. He was a great guy.
Yeah.
I mean, you get these receivers that most of them are all about their own stats and about themselves, and it's just stupid. CeeDee Lamb's another one that's going to probably get moved here soon just because he doesn't make sense for where the Cowboys are as far as in the rebuild and so forth. I mean, hey, their youth rush is bringing Zeke Elliott back.
Yeah. Well, good luck with that one. Good luck with that one. That's not going to work. But we thank you all. Don't forget, as I just mentioned,
what a show tonight, Angel. Great job, buddy.
Thank you. I appreciate it. But we will not be on Friday. Pete will be on tomorrow and Friday. The Drive with Q will be on tomorrow, 5 to 6, audio only, and then he'll be back, as he says, back in the saddle on Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. I will be up there in Daytona covering Arkham Menard Series practice Thursday, Friday, so that should be a lot of fun. But for Gary Myers, we can't thank him enough for coming on the show here with also Beav.
Awesome job.
Yep, coming on as well.
But you don't have to thank me, Angel. It's my job to be here, but thanks, brother.
That's no problem.
The show's kind of named after me, It's kind of, I don't know why. Jackass wasn't available, so we went with that instead. So there you go. Angel, I'll have to set a trip on the NASCAR and talk to you soon, buddy.
All right. Thank you, guys, and thank you, Beav. And don't forget, Talking Hoops coming up right behind us. So have yourselves a great night. We'll talk to you soon.